When you think or look at Philippine contemporary art and landscape, um, where does our hope lie? Where do you think our hope should lie?
I mean, that's a big question. It's always cultivating the next generation, whether artists, critics, historians. I think it's always the next generation. What kinds of changes are we allowing them to be able to do? And also, what are the possibilities? I think it's easy to cultivate a younger generation. The hard part is, what are the possibilities that we are instilling in them?
Today, we are talking to Carlos Quijon Jr. I've known Carlos for many years now, primarily as a writer, as we were one of the first people to tap him to write for an exhibition here at Silverlens Gallery. But that is now history because he has gone on to bigger things, being a fellow at the Museum of Modern Art in New York as part of the CMAP, as well as curating the Venice Biennale in 2024 for the Filipino Pavilion. Hi, Carlos.
Hello.
Welcome home.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yes, this is going to be a good conversation between allies in trying to get the Filipino out of their comfort zone and into a global conversation. I've known Carlos for many years. We've been really trying to work together, on small projects and then hopefully moving into more ambitious projects together. Not necessarily, more in the sense that just trying to make a bigger impact in the global art conversation. Because the Filipinos certainly has a place in the global art conversation.
Definitely.
So, but before we talk about that, could you share your origin story? How did you start? Who were your influences?
Actually, I started as a writer. I was a poet first. I studied comparative literature in UP. And then after graduating, I tried my luck and tried the low aptitude exam in UP also. I was like, am I smart enough to do this? So I tried and I stayed there for a sem. I got in, I stayed there for a sem. But during the sem, I was going to the Arts and Letters Library, reading up on art history, art theory, art criticism, etc. So I got in, and then that's when I started thinking about whether or not it was the career that I wanted to be in. I wasn't really comfortable in the law classroom. Inside the classroom, it's a lot of things that I didn't really feel I can change in a way. So after a term, I decided to quit and I decided to apply to for an MA in the Art Studies program, also in UP. And one of my first professors was Patrick Flores. And this is all, I always cite this story because after the SEM, so I took art criticism classes with him. After the SEM, he said, "What do you want to do?" And before this, I've been reading his work, I've been reading up on his projects, etc. So when he asked me that question, I said, I want to do what you are doing. I want to do art history. I want to write about exhibitions. I want to curate. And that's when I started coordinating projects for him. So he was then the curator for the UP Vargas Museum. And when he had exhibitions outside the Philippines, that's when I would coordinate the exhibitions. But I wasn't really, growing up, art was not really something that I gravitated towards. what I liked about working in the art world when I started was reaching out to these kinds of people. So artists, writers, reaching out to them so that we can do one project. I think that was coordinating was such a interesting thing for me because you have, for me, for example, I'm the coordinator. You have the agency, but not only yours. The agency that's informing this project is not only mine. It's also other people. So the curator is there, the artists are there, the institution is there, plus other practitioners. So I also talk to designers, like the direction they want to do. I talk to Patrick mostly about the things that I think would work for the exhibition. So we had this kind of, the mentorship that I had, that I received from Patrick was this kind of conversational, we're equals, we're deciding on the same things. So that was a nice training for me. But coordinating was something that I really liked doing.
So was it clear what it was to you? Or was Patrick, you know, Patrick, he's a revealer. You know, he sort of massages an idea until you finally get it, right? So was it an instant reveal to you, or was it something that you had to sort of adjust and try to fit?
I think it felt easy for me since he really tried to like ask me questions that were super urgent, super important. So it's not like, oh, this is a low stakes question, so let me ask Carlos. It wasn't like that. It was like, it's a collaborative environment wherein I could change how he thinks about something. So curatorially, there is some leeway in terms of my agency in developing this kind of project. But of course, there was a learning curve to it because it's like, how do you, what was hard for me working in exhibitions as a coordinator was that it was hard for me to imagine the final product. It's like a lot of steps because you're deep in these kinds of questions about what kind of light, where would it be where will the artwork be placed, or where will the text be placed. So it's like you're deep in these kinds of questions. So it was hard for me at the start to think about, oh, this will become an exhibition at some point. So it's like, but that was also exciting because then the final product is something that will be dependent on things that are developing. And that for me is the beauty of curation as well.
That's so amazing. That's so funny because, like, as a gallerist, I know what the end product is.
Okay.
Like, I know it before, before thinking of all of these details. And that end product, everything is sort of moving into, okay, the exhibition. The elements of the exhibition are these objects, are these wall-bound works, or this videos installation. And we also don't know what that end product is, right? But we have to trust that the artist will deliver, and the writer will deliver, and the curator will put it all together, right? So it's and seeing your work like the last few years, now it makes more sense. Because I think you're very thoughtful. You give the artists a lot of runway about what the work is gonna be, or the final form it will take. So conceptually, it's rigorous. The physicality of the objects, I think, are less rigorous because you let the artist play.
Yes. And I think that's a process that works for me as well. I like serendipities. I like it when the best artists that I work with are artists that are very intentional, but in that intentionality, there is an excess of thoughtfulness where the curator can come in and harness that. So there are openings to the work that even when the artist is very intentional about the work, I can see that there are more openings to the work. So it's a lot of the moving parts. Everything is moving. And for me, my job as a curator is to choreograph that movement and create as many points of interest as possible for people, for the public. And I think for me, that's something that we need to think about, especially now with all these kinds of experiences that are mediated by other things, social media, to cite a very good example. And I think for me, when I curate, I rarely, I don't really prioritize concept or meaning. It's interest. If you'd be interested in this object that is placed side by side another object, and you become interested in those two objects in juxtaposition, in side by side, I think that's what an exhibition, like the greatest, the most exceptional thing an exhibition can bring out is that kind of recognizing that something is interesting, or seeing that if you place something with another thing, the interest will change.
Do you think the exhibition is a process? Do you think it's an endpoint? Is it a starting point to something else?
That's a really nice question, because I feel like that will also, if you ask a curator that, their answer will also clarify what the kinds of exhibitions that they do. I think for me, the primary, and I'm not sure how people process this individually, but for me, it's that aspect that I just shared. It's more of a personal thing. It's more of an author thing. As an author, if you're crafting these kinds of experiences for people, I didn't want to have the public to experience a very like unilinear, one-track exhibition. So for me, to answer your question, I think it's always been, exhibitions are just part of an ongoing relationship. That relationship is usually with an institution, with artists. It's an ongoing thing. That's why I'm also, when you mentioned earlier that I let artists play, it's because I always think that exhibitions are not the final product. It's an articulation of something that the artist is thinking about, that the institution is dreaming of. Yeah. So it's a continuous thing that doesn't end in the exhibition alone. So for example, for me, I work a lot with the same artist, usually younger, emerging artists. And I always tell them that you don't need to burden yourself to produce your greatest work in these exhibitions. It's iterative, so it always changes into something else. But for me, it's, if you're a curator, it's when you can let materials have their own thing, let artists have their own thing. So maybe that's also something that is unique to my training, because I do art history research. I write criticism. I also curate. So it's like neither like of these things take priority. It's just switching your brain. When you're curating, you shouldn't be super critical, because that will also frustrate the artists from doing things that are crazier than usual, or trying out things, or developing things that they haven't done before. So I think the exhibition for me is playful because of that kind of changing or switching on off what you need to be in this particular time.
Right. Okay, so you talk about your, I guess, the hats that you wear. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you wear all of them at the same.
Yes.
Researcher, writer, curator, critic. Well, welcome home. You've been away.
Yes, I've been away.
Good that you're back here. I think I'm a little sad that you're back here. You know, the world has other plans.
Yeah.
Which which are beyond our control.
Yes.
At the tail end, or, months away from, leaving New York but still working with the CMAP, MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York, could you give us a couple of highlights of the last couple of years. And then on the flip side, a couple of challenges that you faced.
Working with MoMA, I think when I talk about working in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, I always preface it with when they asked me if I wanted the position, I really doubted, like I was second guessing myself. So I was in New York starting in September 2023. I had the residency there. And these are a lot of serendipitous moments because the residency, um, there was an open call for a residency at ISCP in Williamsburg. Studio and curatorial program, ISCP. So I was there. They confirmed that I got the job. And when I was trying to think about, when they were offering me the job, one thing that I was thinking about is like, but the people I work with and the practices that I want to cultivate are in Southeast Asia. So what happens now? Like I haven't worked in any institution before. So and this is I think that is also the funny thing about it is that from no institution to one of the biggest institutions in the world. So it's like, okay, my kin is in Southeast Asia. The people I liked working with, the people I liked like developing things for are in Southeast Asia. Or the Philippines and the US, like all these things that I was weighing my options. And I think the idea of having the influence to traffic the kind of attention and also the kind of resources that the museum can or the museum has for this project, this kind of residency. And for me, my role was to think about what MoMA wants and also what can help the region. So it's a lot of like juggling these kinds of needs and desires. And one highlight would be, I think just working in an institution that big. I think it's a highlight.
So in terms of this cultural translation, right? Because what do you feel was the biggest idea or the biggest practice or the thing that needed to be articulated from a point of view of the global north?
From the region.
Both ways.
Okay, both ways.
Like Sandaya, what is the point wherein we don't understand each other?
Okay, I think, and this can also be because I am a contemporary art curator in a modern art museum. So I think there's also a lot of things there. But
So there's a difference between modern art and contemporary art. Just Google it.
so I think because the training of MoMA curators is very modern art. So they think about art as something that is objective. So there is there is good art, there's bad art. There's important art, there is not so important art. So I needed to communicate to them how, because in Southeast Asia, the history of modernism, the history of modern art is so different. We don't have a lot of hang-ups in terms of what is good art or like, especially with the artists, it's a lot of experimentation. And because our modernism is different from the West, if you look at a lot of contemporary Southeast Asian artists, there is rarely like painters. There are rarely painters. Not a lot of like studio-based practices. We have a lot of installation. We have a lot of things that become art when they found objects, etc. So I think that's one thing that I really needed to translate, that the work, because also in MoMA, the departments are differentiated according to medium. So it's like, if you have a curator who's interested in Southeast Asia and they just want to look at painting, it's gonna be hard because if you just like painting, and for example, in terms of acquisition, you are a specialist of acquiring paintings. In Southeast Asia, it will be hard for you to do your thing because you need to go through a lot of artists, and some artists paint, some paint like as part of installation, some paint as part of other things. So I think that's one, and I think another is like there's been a history of Western institutions going to places outside the global north for research, meaning research like they look at culture, they see things objectively, exposure trips, these kinds of low stakes trips. So they just go there and then observe, take photos, look at history, but they don't really understand how these kinds of exchanges or these kinds of trips, exchanges should happen. Like there should always be something that the global north gives and takes, and also the region gives and takes. It's always supposed to be like that. There is no like innocent traveling to another place and just to see what the place is doing. So I think that's also something that I really, during my tenure, it's something that I always ask them like, okay, we're doing this. What do you want to get out of it? And then I'll tell them, if you want to get this thing out of this trip or out of this exchange, maybe we can do this for the region so that it's not extractive.
So talking about making connections, right? So the art world is very small. It's very, very small.
Yes.
And everybody knows everybody.
Yes.
And I think that the strength of practice is also equivalent to the strength of your networking skills, right? So networking, not in the sense that you go and you speed date everyone, but more in that you make connections with people who are interested in what you're doing.
Yes.
And then you keep them informed.
Yes.
And it's vice versa.
Yes.
It's vice versa. Can you tell us about these connections?
I think I want to preface my answer by saying that I think networking has had a lot of bad rep. Like networking, we see it as instrumentalization. We see it as like opportunism. But for me, networking is what you do with it, in the sense that for when I started, one of the things that I wanted to do, like early on, was to think about network. In the sense that how in the framework that I have in my head is that I think it would be nice to have a bigger network, in the sense that no part of that network can get a hold of my decision making. So it's like being friends with so many people that it's not really, if you work with one person, it's not really you're tied to them for a very long, or for a long time. So for me, that's the way I see networking. And personally, the way I network is I make friends. I like making friends. I like getting to know people. So yeah, it's a lot of getting to know people.
Yeah.
That's for me how networking creates an ethical dimension, that it's not I'm just using you because I want to have a project with you. It's like a deep connection, or like
There's a real interest.
I think so.
Yeah. There's some authenticity in the interest.
And I think that's hard to come by.
I mean, yes, but that's why when you come across it,
Yes,
grab it,
definitely.
right? I mean, like for us, we've been doing this long time, 22 years this year, and we've made tons of friends across the world, across the globe. And every single person we've met speaks our language.
Yeah.
And that's the wonderful thing.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter whether you're from Brazil,
Yeah.
whether you're from Iceland, or whether you're from Canada, I don't know,
Yeah.
the US, Japan. I mean, there is a universality
Yeah.
in the art, in this art ecosystem.
Yeah. And it's also hard to, for me personally, it's hard to maintain relationships. It's a lot of work. So for me,
It's a lot of work.
it's when it works, it works. Because also, I feel like when you work with someone, especially in an exhibition, like be it an artist or an institution, the labor exceeds what the exhibition demands. It also, the labor is also making sure that everyone's happy, making sure that everything works for everyone.
I just mentioned it recently. I don't know the smart person who said it, but it has to be a sum. It's greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes, definitely.
More and more in the art world. I'm going to talk to you about the Venice Biennale.
Okay.
Okay. The Venice Biennale is a big, I think probably the oldest world exhibition of art. And it is held in the island of Venice in Italy every 2 years. Hence, it's called a Biennale. And it started out as a marketing tool for the city of Venice because their sort of the grandeur of Venice was fading because they were no longer a trading post. So in the late 19th century, the Venice Biennale was born. And now, 2025, when is it now? 2026.
Yes.
We are going to be holding
The 61st.
the 61st Venice Biennale. The Venice Biennale has only stopped 2 years for a world war and for COVID. Okay. So you were curator number 5 of the Philippines. Speaking about being ready for that, readiness, because when opportunities come, oftentimes you've been working on it even before the opportunity showed up.
I think so. I'm a firm believer of that.
Great. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. I think, so Venice is an open call. The NCCA has an arm specifically dedicated to the Venice participation. So it's an open call. And I think before myself, a lot of the curators were curators who were part of institutions. So even with that, just that context, I wasn't thinking of getting the curatorship. I applied the year before.
Oh, you did. So this wasn't your first application.
This is my second, and my first application was with another curator. I talked to Mark Salvatos, an artist based in Lucban and also in Manila. And the funny thing is, he was supposed to be my artist if I applied by myself the previous year. So it's like, that was my plan. So I talked to Mark. I said, I've been following this series that you're making. It's about Banahaw, the mountain. And I told him, I really like this work, but here's my proposition. If we want to propose to Venice, we should think about scale. We should think about spectacle. Because if you go to the Venice Biennale, there are 2 areas wherein the main exhibition is, and then the rest are in the Arsenale, where the Philippine Pavilion is. It's one pavilion after the other. It's just walking from one country pavilion to the other country pavilion. And I said to Mark that if ever we're going to do Venice, that's something that I want you to think about. And that's a tough question. That's a tough prompt because I feel like it's hard for us to imagine scale. I'm thinking because it's the infrastructure that we have. We don't have big commissions.
So when you say we think about scale, it's a Pinoy.
I think so. I think it's a
Yeah.
because it's also an infrastructural problem.
Right.
We don't have big commissions here. Our institutions don't really invest that much for commissioning new works. So for
Also, we don't have scale and ambition comes from money.
one of our first conversations that I like this series that you're doing, but I wanted to transform for the Biennale. So we developed that. And then I feel like, yeah, in the Philippines, it's hard to cultivate that kind of imagination. And as a curator, I can only like push them to a direction that makes them consider it. And also, I feel like when I was thinking about the pavilion and what I wanted to do for the Philippine Pavilion, I also wanted to displace Manila a bit because it's like our artists are, at least when I submitted the proposal, our artists are in Manila. We are very cosmopolitan in that sense.
It's a problem with this. I mean, with all industries, it's
Yes.
per Manila centric.
Yes.
So the provinces are not. It's like that when you say Manila, that's equals to the Philippines.
Yes. Especially internationally. Yes. Internationally, that's how they see us. So for me, I wanted to displace Manila a bit because I feel like there's also a sense of being cosmopolitan in Manila that doesn't help in producing artwork, if that made sense.
I don't think we're cosmopolitan.
I mean,
I think that's such. that's a word from like it was a word in the 60s and then it became a word in the 90s.
in the 90s, I think there is some pressure and some burden to think about what you're doing as global.
Yeah.
I think that's where the cosmopolitan thing comes in. Like, there is this, I'm not sure how to call it, but there is that burden for the artist. When you talk to them about the Venice Biennale, there's always that immediate translation of what I'm doing now is not enough. I should, so it's also tempering that kind of process, that logic, that yes and no.
Right.
It's not enough because the question of Venice is different. It's not a question of who has the. I mean, it is a question of concept, but also it's a question of with this like the art-going public of Venice, mainly tourists. I think there's a lot of tourists in Venice. So it's like, for me, it's yes and no. You need to change some things, but not to translate what you're working on into what you think would be international, global, cosmopolitan.
Yeah, that's also the deal with is my work good enough,
Yes.
right? And I mean, it's very different from dito tayo sa QC,
Yeah, yes.
di ba? Wherein, sobrang you got it, it's your comfort zone, which brings me to a favorite story of mine, Nick Wakid's Heritage of Smallness. I mean, we've had this conversation before. Like, oftentimes, the artists, when they leave our borders, they leave our safe harbor, and they go out into the world. That's the only time they realize, oh my God, scale and ambition. Like, I can think there's so many instances where we've had a front row seat at artists who leave, whatever, Cebu, and they go to Venice. And it's like, I get it. I get what needs to happen. Or else they'll say, I get it, I can't do it. So meron talagang, teka lang, that's a really big mountain that we're gonna climb. Diba? I don't have the constitution, I don't have the gear, I don't have the...
Yes.
Right? So, Mark Salvatos, okay, so you tell him, we gotta scale it up, but
Scale it up.
it's to be authentic to what you're doing.
Yeah, it's gonna be something that is first is still interesting to him, still interesting to what he thinks about how he imagines the life of the artwork, the life of the research. Um, yeah, so it's a lot of that. But I think Mark is a very good choice, and also I feel like 80% of the fate of the pavilion lies in like which artist you choose. And going back to that idea of like the heritage of like smallness, I also think because it for me my approach, and I think I've shared this to you before, my approach is not necessarily to create or to imagine one sort of ambition for everyone. It's making people naturalized to thinking big. And that's what we have in terms of like, for example, of course we have that in the heritage of smallness, but if you don't have institutions that allow you to dream big, like little by little asks you to be more ambitious, then when you go to the big league, it's gonna be shocking to you because you don't have the disposition to like mediate it. You don't have the disposition na, oh, I've been doing little by little, exploring and exploring, being bigger and bigger in scale, more and more ambitious. I think that would help a lot. But with our case, it's like, here is Venice. This is what's happening in Venice. So it's like, okay.
It's kind of like how you went from no institution.
And I think Venice also is important in that process because so 2024 was wild because I got the residency, I got Venice, I got the call for Venice, and towards the end, I got the call for MoMA. So it's like maybe that's my initiation, my initiation for the bigger things to come.
Right.
And I think that's important also. The way I think participating in regional, international events is also not because you've made it, but just to be aware of, oh, this is an opportunity that came my way.
Right. We all know that art, in order to be strong, needs to be strong locally. And then so it can make this leap. So what do you want to see more of? Who do you want to see sort of move from the local to the regional to the international?
I think, and I definitely agree, the local should be compelling enough before we go to the regional or the international. I think the local ecosystem should be able to support itself better. And the thing about this question is that a lot of artists. Okay.
When you say the local ecosystem needs to support itself better,
Yes.
what about it?
I think we have a weird, I think, issue with the Philippine art landscape. In that I rarely see people who started as emerging artists become mid-career artists. There are not enough solo shows for the younger ones wherein they get to stake their claim about their practice, why they are an artist, why they are an important artist. And I feel like this is true also for criticism. There's a lot of writers who start off writing criticism and then become teachers. Artists also become teachers, etc. And I think that's symptomatic of what kind of support we have now for our artists. It's a kind of support that only values you when you're taking less risks.
Allow me to translate.
Okay.
So, if the artists are only supported by a market,
Okay.
in other words, they have a market.
Okay.
They are commercially viable.
Okay.
And that supports them. If they don't have that, or if they are very good artists, But there are no institutions that can take these artists from being instinctively good, giving them agency or space or budgets to create exhibitions on an institutional level. Institutional meaning museums, whether it be public museums, university museums. Then these artists sort of fall by the wayside and enter academia.
That's one thing that happens. But I think we can frame it in terms of stakes. Like, I think a solo exhibition is a high stake thing for institutions, for the artists, for the curators, for the writers. And I feel like that's what we don't cultivate here.
Yeah.
Because if you're a younger artist and if you're a younger artist, you're usually really just in the group shows because that's less risky for everyone.
Do artists are, I don't know, like I feel like I'm not sure if artists are of the mindset like low stakes, mid stakes, high stakes. I don't think they think of
Because we have that heritage of smallness too. It's not an ambition-based thing because we're not taught to imagine what the stakes are in our practices. Like
those who've got before.
yes, like for example, if you're a critic, when do you say that you've made it or that your voice has influence? It's when people give you the space for your stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a conversation that we are not having, we're supposed to have more of. Because it's like, it's connected to the support, it's connected to the ambition, it's also connected to the stakes. It's connected to what kind
I
of
think the stakes aren't real to them.
can.
I mean, I'll give you a classic example. There was an artist we had many years ago who had secured the interest of an important international curator. And this curator wanted to include their work in a big show. But the show was in conflict with a group show here in Manila with the Barkada.
Okay.
They chose the show here in Manila, the Barkada. For whatever reason. Whatever reason. But it's like, if you're already giving them, you've presented the opportunity and it's clear, but okay na ako di. Or, birthday ni ganito birthday show ni ganito Diba? So, they don't, I don't know.
There's something that I've learned from curating and also cultural studies in general, that sometimes it's better and more productive to think about why the desire is attractive rather than what the effect of the desire is. So, for example, in that sense,
That's like, it's
Our-
better, it's always better in the Liga 1 stage.
I mean, in a way, it just tells us that desires exist and they're attractive because of a reason. So maybe the international exhibition was not as desirable as this camaraderie, barkadahan, etc. because we haven't thought that this is a desire too that is attractive.
Yes.
And that goes back to cultivating this ambition for our artists and also for our curators. Because when the desire is there, the more important thing is to recognize why is it desirable for people and why is this not desirable for people.
A big thing that I tell all our artists is value. Whatever you do needs to add value to who you are, your practice. And if it doesn't add value, don't do it. And then it will be like, nakakahiya naman. Then, you know what? You've already paid your dues. You don't owe anyone anything. You know? And what is it to say, sorry, I'm not available at that time?
Okay.
Right? But to reach that point, sorry, I'm not available at that time. 7 words. Oh my gosh. It is like existential. You know?
Of course, I hate it when I receive those that sentence. But see, also there are times it's not the right time.
Yes.
But you just gotta take it. If it now is not the right time, there will be the right time,
Yes.
right? So when you think or look at Philippine contemporary art and landscape, where does our hope lie? Where do you think our hope should lie?
I mean, that's a big question. And I think, it's always cultivating the next generation, whether artists, critics, historians. I think it's always the next generation. And I think also that question should be exceptionally burdened as well, because we are not just cultivating the next generation, we're also cultivating the kinds of things that is possible for them to dream about. So it's not just like, oh, we cultivate the younger, but what are we allowing them to dream about? What kinds of changes are we allowing them to be able to do? And also, what are the possibilities? I think it's easy to cultivate a younger generation. The hard part is, what are the possibilities that we are instilling in them? We are opening to them.
Also, a lot of times people seem to think art is made for free.
Yes, labor is free. Let's,
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
not true.
especially here, I think labor is like,
Actually, here.
we are
Yes.
making things from things.
So I think that's a really good point, because funding, and it goes back again to scale ambition equals funding, right?
Yes.
We need funding. We need institutional funding. We need investing in art
Yes.
making, and when you invest in art making, you're not just investing in that work. You're actually helping the whole ecosystem
Yes, definitely.
break something into fruition.
Yeah. And also, I think we need public funding.
We do.
We can't live off private funding, because the public institutions should also learn how to respond to the needs of their constituents. And if we just get public funding, these private funding, these public institutions won't know how we process things. We won't know what our needs are. So when you go to them, it's like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing with this money? Like, everything is accounted for, and like, so it's like, for me, we also need, this is a weird phrasing, but we also need to teach the public sector to also support us and see that this should be a sustained effort to support.
Well, that's a good word.
Yeah, you should be looking at the same horizon. Yes. If not, then what's the point?
So, on that note, what's next for you?
For me, I think for me, curating is, I still want to continue what I'm doing. I want to research, I want to curate, I want to write for exhibitions, I want to do all these things. But I think post-MoMA, what I'm looking at is how to translate this kind of aura, this kind of the MoMA air into something productive for the artists here in the region as well. How to translate this kind of privilege to something that can be distributed. I think one of the things that I really admire with the curators at MoMA is, one, they really invest in the artists that they work with. Meaning they invest time, they create this sustained relationship with artists that they're working. And also, I think what we need to learn is also to have a more complex understanding of these relationships. Meaning, it's not just because of the museum. Something that I've been thinking about when I started was that I think I like thinking about curating in terms of being a gallery. Meaning, thinking also not just what the concept of this artist are or what the kind of work they do, but also how can I make you realize that everything, every step of the way contributes to one practice? Artists are people. We need to support them so that they can continue being artists.
So on that note,
Thank you for inviting me again.
very welcome. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
There's a lot to unpack and there's a lot of work to do. And I'm glad that you are home.
Mhm.
And I know that there will be big things coming out
Yeah.
of your practice. Once again, this is Isa Lorenzo. Here I am reminded that it is incredibly important to cultivate talent, cultivate a generation of talented people, to sustain interest, to be authentic in your practice, and to be able to support people who are good at what they do.
Creative Encounters with Isa Lorenzo is a Silverlens Gallery production produced by Manila Media. The Manila Media team is led by executive producer Ella Evangelista Martelino, creative director Leo Sanchez Matias, producers Dred Irum and Mel Lozano, associate producer Christine Parafina. At Silverlens, our thanks to co-director Rachel Rillo, the entire Silverlens Gallery's team, and hair and makeup artist Pia Reyes for making this series possible. If you enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and follow at Silverlens Galleries on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more inspiring conversations on art, design, and culture. Until our next creative encounter,